And I'm so happy to be here with you from Israel, evening time, and to connect with everyone from Momentum around the world is really a pleasure. One of the things I unfortunately have not been able to do in the last few weeks is welcome groups from your fine organization and other wonderful visitors to the state of Israel at our international headquarters here in Jerusalem, and being able to share our story, our mission, and how, I would say in many ways, meet the goals that you spoke of just right now, of how here at United Hatzalah in Israel, we're providing exactly that type of uniformity, but at the same time, everyone in their own way is able to help and make a difference. So people want to know what United Hatzalah is, we'll share some information at the end, but essentially anywhere in Israel you need medical services, and actually now during the current crisis, we're actually offering humanitarian connecting services through our communication center throughout the state of Israel. That's what we're here for, free and fast, from the heart, men, women, all sectors, Jewish, not Jewish, Muslim, Christian, so on and so forth, are together helping to change and save lives throughout this fine state of Israel. So I just want to put out there, I'm also thinking and praying for everyone around the world that is being affected by the current disease, the coronavirus, and specifically, the first and foremost that comes to mind is our founder and president of United Hatzalah, Eli Beer, who's fighting this horrible illness, and he should just continue to have a full and speedy recovery with all the other injured in all communities. So his name is Eliezer Yehuda Ben Chaya. We're thinking of him and everyone together who are in need of our prayers and our thoughts during this time. So when we put this presentation together, one of the conversations was, what exactly can we teach everyone at home within just a few moments that we have of how to make a difference or how to save a life? And at the same time, I would say the hacks as well. So what I would love for people to do is, if you have questions or things that perhaps I'm not going to be addressing, if you could just send in the questions, and there will be a section towards the second half of this conversation of where I would definitely be very interested to specifically address any particular questions or items that perhaps I did not yet address. So I would say that my experience both in Israel and also in the US, many of the things that are occurring are not life-threatening. When we call for help, an average citizen needs assistance and help is called, most of the time, people are not having truly a life-threatening emergency. But I think we would all agree that in those moments, as the emergency occurs, for that person, it's critical and very scary. And knowing what to do in those first few moments can really be all the difference, not only between life and death, but also being able to be in control of a situation or the situation to be in control of you. So I know it sounds somewhat anticlimactic, but actually the first way, or the first hack that I wrote down on my list, is to be prepared. And it seems like, really, is that what you're telling us, Shai? Absolutely. If we make a commitment, especially during this time where many of us with social distancing or home quarantine, we have the opportunity to do this. We all are finding things that they were not doing or didn't have time to do. I've all of a sudden started fixing things around the house and coloring, believe it or not, very therapeutic. But I would say that all of us have that opportunity to put a little bit of pre-planning in and be ready in the event or when there will be, because there's really not a question of, will someone get hurt? Will a child fall and maybe cut themselves? Will an elderly person trip and fall or slip on the ice or perhaps in a pool this coming summer season? The answer is it's going to occur. And what are we going to do? And what can we do already now to be ready for it? So the first hack I wrote is be prepared. Be prepared in the sense of be ready to react. First thing that comes to mind is knowing who are you going to call. If you have the most horrific of emergencies, and we'll put those into the life-threatening emergencies, and we'll say those are the people who are choking, those people who are not moving or breathing, or those people potentially might be having some sort of critical heart, cardiac, or brain neurological type of emergency. Those critical emergencies, we immediately want to call for assistance. And it really depends where in the world you are. Here in Israel, our direct number is 1221, United Hatzalah. Anywhere the borders of the state of Israel, 1221 gets our emergency dispatch center. We speak multiple languages there. Everywhere else, definitely in the US, we're talking about 911 at least. And then certain communities also have other services that may also provide ambulance and medical services that will arrive relatively quickly. So here in Israel, we have about a 90-second response in large hubs like Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and nationally we're at a 3-minute response time. And it's all done by volunteers, which is pretty amazing. So knowing your number, and the other thing I would suggest is already put it into your phone. Aside from 911, you could probably know that, but otherwise put it into your address book, put into your contacts, the emergency number, if it's something that is not something, a number that you grew up with. Knowing who you're gonna call, and don't hesitate to call. I can't tell you how many times people have apologized to me when I've arrived, or even on the phone when I worked as an operator on the 911 system. I'm sorry for bothering you. You're not bothering anyone. That's what they're there for. And you can call and ask for some either advice, or we have a protocol that is generally used in the US and also used here in Israel with United Hatzalah of something called pre-arrival medical instruction. Every day, and specifically in our system, nearly 2,000 emergencies a day, we're providing real-time medical assistance prior to the medical responder arriving. So there's actual medical care that's happening on the phone. So when you call for help and you say, okay, my wife is giving birth and the contractions are this and the baby's coming out, what do I do? Or my son tripped and fell and he's bleeding profusely from his arm. What do I, they will give you as medical trained people that assistance of actually what to do. So the first thing you need to know is what's the number. And we don't want to try to call our father or our neighbor who might be a physician or a mom who might be running the nurse manager of an emergency room somewhere. We want to call the person who could give us immediate medical assistance on the phone that's geared to me on the other end, and also being able to send assistance if it's warranted based on the medical complaint. So knowing the emergency number. And I know it sounds a little bit maybe cliche, but we've actually created these little wristbands. So as people, and we do informational sessions for children, young adults, or frankly anyone, because definitely in Israel, there's many different numbers for all the different services, and it can be quite confusing. So making something simple, and I would even suggest nowadays when everyone is home, even make an art project, make little bracelets like an Hatzalah bracelet, and make it for your local emergency number, and let the young people, the children, know it's okay to call. Give permission as a parent or a grandparent, the permission to your family members, many of them who perhaps would defer to you, or perhaps would want permission prior to asking for assistance. But we don't want that to make anyone wait. We want people to call right away if someone is in need. Imagine if we're the ones in need for help. So we want already the young people to know that it's okay to call for help if mom, dad, grandma, grandpa needs assistance. The second thing I would want to mention is knowing where we are. While our technology is depending where in the world you are, that may be able to find you based on your location or where you're calling from, other ones are not. So in Israel, for instance, United Hatzalah has this type of system that when you call and say, I have no idea where I am, our dispatcher actually could send you a link that one click, we then get your location. We get your Google Map pinpoint of where you are. And many systems have similar points like that. People might say, I'm on a highway, I'm on a roadway, I don't know where, it might be hard. But if you, and same thing, teach yourself, teach your family members, what is your home address? Perhaps put it into your phone as well. So in the moment of panic or concern, you'll actually be able to know where you are. Unlocked doors is another big one. A lot of times people need help, but now they're busy and they don't actually open the front door and don't hear the responders banging and try to gaining access. And if you have enough people, actually sending someone outside to do the wave and wave down the ambulance or the first responder is definitely a way that we could cut time out. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to multi-dwelling buildings in like New York City or any other urban environment. Israel has many of them where you have multiple families that are in one structure and you don't know which entrance and which side and what elevator floor, and that can lose critical minutes. Because when we speak about the most critical minutes, we're talking about those critical emergencies of when someone's perhaps choking or when someone is completely unresponsive or not moving. So if I had to break those two emergencies down, what to do if someone's choking? Remember, when someone is choking, they're not able to talk, they're not able to breathe, they're not able to cough forcefully. So the first thing you want to do is see if the person's actually choking. How do you do that? So you ask them, are you choking? Can you speak? Now, if you do those things and the person is saying, yes, I'm choking, I feel some, they're not actually choking. They may need assistance, they may need to be calmed down. The best advice at that point is to continue to cough. The coughing actually enables the item to come out on its own. We don't want to interfere. We do not want to put fingers in anyone's mouth. We want to encourage even an infant, child, or adult to continue to cough. If it's a smaller child or infant, maybe you will mimic the coughing sound or motion, which will then perhaps have them sort of copy you and then expel whatever may be having them choke or cough at this point, to be correct. If they are not coughing, not able to speak, and maybe just hearing a high-pitched whistle, those are type of situations where we want to act quickly and actually dislodge what we call a foreign object. So if you're with a few individuals, my recommendation would be to immediately call for assistance, point to someone specifically, say, you call in Israel United Hatzalah 1221, tell them the baby is choking and come back to me. So they're gonna go, they're gonna call the number, they're gonna make that phone call. In the meantime, you are gonna now go through a process of looking to dislodge or remove the foreign object from the person's airway or throat, the breathing tube, essentially. How is that done? It really depends on the age. If it's under 1 year of age or above 1 year of age. Under 1 year of age, you're going to do a combination of something called back blows and chest thrusts. Back blows is literally you're taking a baby, and I know, maybe some parents might feel the desire to do this because of all the time in quarantine and home time with their children. They want to shake or hit chuck. Don't do that, not advisable. But if they're choking and it's an infant below 1 year of age, you'll take the baby, have the baby actually facing head down towards the ground, and now you're gonna smack the back of the baby's upper back to dislodge the object. So you're actually hitting with the palm of your hand into the small or the up, or actually I would say between the shoulder blades, the upper back of this infant as the head is facing down to hopefully push the object out. In the event that doesn't work, you're gonna flip the baby over and you're gonna do the same head down position and push in the center of the chest with your fingertips. So you're doing a combination of, we'll call it a baby sandwich, maybe before Pesach it's appropriate, as we're gonna have our Seder sandwiches as well, but no matzah involved in our sandwich, but we're gonna do back blows, 5, and then flip the baby over and do the middle of the chest thrusts. And you're gonna repetitively do this until the first responder, the Hatzalah volunteer, arrives, or in your community, perhaps the fire department or ambulance service. So what do you do if it's over 1 year of age, a child or an adult? Actually, it's the same skill. You're gonna come behind the person in a standing position, and you're gonna give a bear hug. But where's the hug gonna be? The bear hug is gonna be on the stomach, above the belly button, below the ribs. So you're gonna make a fist, the thumb against the body. Now you're behind the person. You're doing this upwards and inwards motion on the belly, on the stomach, on the soft part of the stomach, not the ribs. And you're going to squeeze repetitively in and up until the object pops out. So if the person's conscious, awake, but not able to breathe, cough, or move air in and out, and it's above 1 year of age, small children, you will kneel down behind them. Adults, you'd stand up behind them, and you would do that continuous type of motion until the object pops out. So very simply, these skills often will alleviate the problem well before even the quickest responders of 90 seconds arrive at the scene. So knowing who to call, immediately taking action, and then also knowing this very basic skill of how to do what's called, for the adults, Heimlich, because that's Dr. Heimlich's the one who came up with it, the Heimlich maneuver, or for the infants, the combination of back blows and chest thrusts. And that's for the emergency of choking. Now, that's really good to know. But now I want actually everyone, hopefully today, already evening or nighttime where you are. If you're in Israel, maybe hold off till tomorrow. This is something you could actually do with some of your children. You want to approach from a preventative perspective the areas where smaller children, toddlers, infants have access to. So you truly want to crawl in the different rooms that your children have access to and see the room from their perspective. Anything that's small that your bird's eye standing view is not seen, you'll now see much better. Also, perhaps it'll help with your looking for your chametz. That might just be an added benefit, but what you're really doing is having access from their view. And anything that could enter through the tube of toilet paper or the tube of a paper towel roll, anything that enters in there is too small for the toddler or smaller child to have access to. It's a choking hazard. So many times it's things that you are unaware they're on the floor. So when you're kneeling or crawling, you do this as a family activity. It's a little bit of exercise as well. You crawl around, find these smaller items in the nooks and crannies on the bed or couch. Those are the things that are truly dangerous to the children or younger toddlers, infants. Secondly, what you'll do is if you're unsure, is this really appropriate? Yes, every package has, do not give below a certain age, but trying to actually pass it through the toy, through the toilet paper or paper towel roll, that's an indicator if it's too small to be left with the child. I'm just looking back on my list. Awesome. The next thing is having yourself prepared with perhaps a first aid kit. And there's many different, I actually just brought a few out from different places that I have them in my car or here around the house. But having everyone in the family know where your first aid kit is located. It doesn't have to be a surgical suite where a physician's going to do an operation. We're talking about what to do in the event you have something small that needs to be done. So you could either, this is one Hatzal put together with one of our partners, and by the gracious donation of one of them, put this together so that we gave out at an event recently. You could go ahead and purchase them online. There's many configurations, but a small kit to one that could be in your glove compartment, to one that could be in perhaps a medicine cabinet or a pantry. Everyone knows this is where you go. And this is where you're having the basic bandaging supplies, something that's small, something that could be controlled by yourself, and something that is not, that's horrifically large and bleeding, or in any state that needs some more intervention. How do you know if it needs an intervention? Well, if you're not able to control or stop the bleeding, that would be one indicator. The other things that are on the market, I'll just put out there. If someone has a allergic reaction, Epipens, those are the auto-injectable epinephrine shots that can be kept. And a lot of times the schools have them, the homes have them, a lot of people have these allergies, and there's a possibility, perhaps if it's a loved one or an extended family member, maybe they, the patient or the family member can get an extra one to keep by you at your home, in your car, or a place that you might be around these people with these hazards or these type of anaphylaxis or these type of allergic reactions. The second thing, unfortunately, with the opioid crisis going on, you have a similar type of end user, non-medical professional aerosolized nasal spray that, God forbid, if someone's having a overdose on opiates, this type of inhalator or this type of nasal spray, aerosolized Narcan, can be given and very quickly can reduce or actually have the person come back, continue and start breathing again and return to essential consciousness. Last one I'd put out there, and this is very simple, you could buy this on Amazon or local pharmacy. It's a little tube of glucose, of sugar. This is something great to keep in the event someone might have diabetes, or even if not, because sometimes people forget to eat, other medication they're on. So having in your first aid kit this little tube, it almost looks like icing for cake. It's called glucose. It's a very thick gel. And what you would do, if the person is still awake, you would actually twist off the top of this little tube, a little toothpaste type of tube, and in the inner lip, in mucosa, it's called, or the inner gum lining, you would squeeze this and let it absorb there, which then would help bring up the sugar. So the three type of interventions that very easily, if it's a sugar with the glucose, EpiPen that everyone could learn how to use and keep an extra one in your kit, and maybe depending where you are, what your level of concern is, maybe actually getting one of those Narcan overdose type of aerosolized nasal sprays that could be kept, God forbid, if that type of emergency occurs. So having that together. And the other thing, I know it sounds extremely hacked or very small, literally in your own wallet. I do this every day, and people know it because obviously been doing this for a while. People find me if it's in the Beit Knesset, in the shul, the synagogue, or at work, or frankly walking down the street. Keep in your purse with your credit card, even if you're minimalist and you don't have a lot of cards, a lot of papers, but keep a few simple Band-Aids in your wallet. Why? For those bumps and bruises, for the ones that are truly not life-threatening, but for more emotional support for the young people out there, and to feel that their fall or their bumps and bruises, or perhaps a small scratch is being addressed, I always keep and replenish nearly daily before I leave the house in my wallet, with a few credit cards and some cash, having a few Band-Aids in there as well. And I regularly throughout the day, or on Shabbat, it's in my jacket or my suit pants, carrying a few simple Band-Aids as well. And those could be a great way to keep a minimal emergency minimized and not making it a mountain out of a molehill. The other thing that I would mention is what happens if someone does get injured or is bleeding and you're not able to control it. How do you know? Well, the first thing you do is when someone gets injured and they're bleeding, especially if it's an immediate family member and you feel comfortable touching their wound without gloves. Obviously, if you have a kit, in your kit, one of the things you'd want to carry is gloves. So you will have bandaging equipment. You'll have something to clean the wound as well, and then something to wrap around the wound to hold it in place. And obviously, like we mentioned, those trusty little Band-Aids. But what we want to do is when the person is injured, the first thing you want to do is you want to put direct pressure with your hand on the injury site. So just say the person got cut by a knife or by a piece of glass and they're bleeding, you're going to take your hand and just squeeze that area and hold it tightly and not let go. A lot of times people have the mistake of keeping the arm low and down, but we actually want to keep it at level of the heart. And if it continues to bleed, you're actually going to raise it above the heart level. So while you're holding manual pressure, you want to send someone to get your kit. Because with the kit, now you can start bandaging this wound. So the first thing you want to do, you're going to open up. These are gauze pads, but if not, it could be a clean towel, paper towel, or fabric towel, and you're opening these up and you're putting it directly on the wound. These are sterile. Initially, it doesn't have to be such. You're just going to do that, and on the wound size, you're going to put it there and then immediately hold pressure. After holding pressure, if you see that after a few moments it's continually bleeding, you would now add to the one gauze and put a second and third. What you do not want to do is you do not want to remove this. If you take this off, now essentially you've started from scratch, and any clotting that may have occurred, now you've essentially undone that, and now you have to start once again and trying to control the bleeding. I would say if you're not able to control the bleeding and it's either excessively, profusely bleeding right away, call for help 1221 in Israel, 911 anywhere else in the US. At the same time, if you see it slowing down or stopping, you now want to add to the bandaging with perhaps a second and third, never letting go because the manual pressure is quite important. And then what we'll call a little pressure bandage, you'll take, this is called gauze, or it could be something that you'll wrap around the wound, almost like a little first aid fill-in a sense. That you're gonna wrap around the wound, and now you're putting pressure on the wound with the gauze, with your manual pressure, all that together while keeping it elevated. Now, if none of that's really working, the next step, in addition to all this pressure, is actually squeezing the inside. A lot of times, this is the artery, or this is the actual place of where the majority of the blood's coming. So obviously, if it's an arm, you're going to do it close to the armpit, in the inner part of the arm, sort of split the upper and lower arm. in the legs, it's actually going to be in the crease of your legs, going inwards from your pelvis. And obviously, if it's the leg, have the person lay down, and now you're elevating one leg, if not both legs. That will help also in the event of bleeding or shock. And the next question, a lot of times people ask, what happens if it's no Shai? You don't understand. It's a very, very massive bleeding. And we've seen in the last few years, there's been a change from civilian options in those type of bleeding situations. So the most common thing that used to be done for those who've served in the IDF or live here in Israel, it's more commonplace. Growing up in the US, it was not. But what has always been taught for military medicine is to use some sort of tourniquet in the event if it's massive hemorrhage or massive bleeding, that bandages and something small wrapping or holding is not going to control. Also, if it's in a central area of the chest where there's a lot of vasculature, a lot of vessels, a lot of blood, that also would not be applicable here. So what you're going to do in the event that it's massive hemorrhage on an extremity, an arm or a leg, you would either use a belt. Not everyone always wears belts, but if you have a belt, removing your belt and then putting it above. So if the person's injured here, you would then put the tourniquet tightly wrapped around below the injury site, closer to the body. Obviously, if the injury site is beyond the elbow, you would then put the tourniquet here. The question is, what happens in the event you don't have a belt? Well, that's why they make these little devices. Once again, it can be bought on Amazon. This was an Israeli invention. It's actually used the CAT, it's called CAT, but there's many of them out there. And we actually see a lot of non-medical providers, and this could be kept in your first aid kit. It's a combination of placing it on the wound site, and then there's a technique of actually tightening it with this little ratchet type of system here. I know time is short.
Shai, dude, I mean, we could keep you for the next 2 years. You cannot imagine the queue of questions that we're not going to be able to answer. So we are going to have to do this another time. Just before you go, I cannot even express how I was even actually trying the Heimlich on myself and it wasn't working. One fast question. You're so phenomenal, but it really struck me because it's one of my personal issues. How do you know the difference between an anxiety attack and a heart attack?
You actually don't. And if the person who's having that anxiety attack,
yeah,
if you ask them to put all the money on the table, they're going to tell you they're having a heart attack. It feels exactly the same. So I think when in doubt, you want to call for assistance. Okay. Because once the responder arrives, you will be, if it's anxiety, a lot of times just the presence of that responder could just calm you down, knowing you're not alone, and there's a skilled professional who could check you out. The advanced providers, the paramedics and physicians actually could do an EKG and do a heart rhythm analysis right on the spot to see if there's indicators that potentially this could be a heart attack. And if they have the smallest of possibilities, they'll take you to a hospital or urgent care center where they actually will do a blood test that tests your enzymes, will then be able to confirm if or if not there is a heart attack. I know there was another question I just wanted to mention. Now that people are home, this is time to take advantage. Just like Momentum is doing these amazing events daily to connect people and just be so informative and I would say innovative as far as how education and communication is moving. Same time when it comes to these skills, if you do a search, the American Heart Association, a wonderful organization, the critical bleed called Stop the Bleed. If you do these searches, they have online courses. The American Heart Association, and I don't work for them, they actually have a course that you sign up online, you do the lectures by video, they actually mail you a little inflatable mannequin. So those skills of doing CPR and pushing are done via the computer with this little package that they send you that will then make you certified in CPR.